In life, there are at least a few things we've come to rely on as givens, universal truths that will never change. Grass is green, sky is blue, and congressional Republicans in the NRA will never back a piece of gun control legislation. But today, that wall of opposition may have cracked. This afternoon, the NRA released a statement saying they believe, quote, devices designed to allow semi-automatic rifles to function like fully automatic rifles should be subject to additional regulations. By that, they mean devices like the bump stock, with which the Las Vegas shooter Stephen Paddock outfitted several of his guns, evidently to get them to fire faster and be more deadly. We also learned that Paddock may have scouted other locations as well, including Chicago and Fenway Park in Boston as possible targets. As you know, Fenway Park, where a playoff game will be played in just 3 days. In total, investigators now say Paddock had 23 weapons in his hotel suite, several of which were modified, plus more than 50 pounds of explosives and 1,600 rounds of ammunition in his car. So, are we finally about to see some action from our do-nothing Congress? Joining me are Jesse Mermell, former communications director for then-Governor Deval Patrick. Nice to see you, Jesse. Michael Graham, Boston Herald columnist, host of Michael in the Morning. Nice to see you. When you're on Face the Nation, you wear a tie. I don't take it personally. Okay, so Chuck Todd from Meet the Press is on the radio with me and Marjorie today. He says, you can list all the Republicans in the world who say they're going to do this. Unless the NRA gives them permission, they're not doing anything. Was that permission today from the NRA?
Well, the NRA definitely said, let's do something about bump stocks because they are such a fringe. In the gun community, they're basically the whoopee cushion of the gun world. It's kind of a stunt device, so nobody cares about them. But this notion that the NRA drives this? No, it's the millions of people who support gun rights that the NRA represents. Take away the people, and that's where the political power comes from.
Last year, when there was a poll of NRA members on background checks, which the NRA opposed, 85% of their members supported background checks. So how are they representing the members there?
Well, as I pointed out in my Michael in the Morning podcast today.
Oh, yes, I've heard about
that. You've heard about that? Yes. It's the powerful or the committed minority versus the broad majority. People who vote on a broad issue of things versus people who are very, very focused and are going to show up and vote on that one issue.
But they weren't representing the majority of their members is the bottom line. Can I move to you for I don't understand. My attitude was the attitude of people like Charles Blow and others, which was if they're not doing anything after Sandy Hook and 20 dead 6- and 7-year-olds, they are never doing anything. Why now? Why did this wall, as I said, why did it apparently crack today?
Yeah, I was with you. I said this to Renee Graham on Twitter that she said, I don't think anything's going to happen if it didn't happen after Sandy Hook. And I said, I fear you're right, but I hope you're wrong.
Why were we wrong? Well, we appear to be wrong. We don't know.
I think it's a totality of circumstances. If I can first say, I don't know a single whoopee cushion that's been behind attacking 500-plus people. So I think this is a little more serious than a whoopee cushion. But I think it's the totality of circumstances. Never, ever, ever, ever give up. Folks who have been pushing for gun safety for years, for decades, have finally gotten to the NRA to this point of weakness, and they've made this concession. And they have to keep going. Assault weapons bans, silencers. There's so much more to be done. And I don't know what it was about this instance, but it clearly was a tipping point to the NRA. And they are in a point of maybe not weakness now, but weaker than they have been before, and we have to take advantage of it.
Why do you disagree?
Because I talked to Senator Mike Lee yesterday, and I said, isn't it time for, as I've been saying, that people like me who support the Second Amendment should be advancing reforms that make sense, because you don't want to leave reforms in the hands of people who hate guns. And he was unapologetic. No, we have no interest in going backwards.
Well, the NRA hadn't given permission until today.
No, because I'm telling you, the whoopee cushion metaphor may be inept, but it is on point. That this is such a small. This is nothing in the world of gun rights and the gun community.
It is
Nobody
symbolically
cares about
huge
bump
because the
stocks.
NRA.
I'm sorry, I don't agree.
The reason I believe, and I think I'm right, that they never moved on background checks is you give them an inch and then the floodgates open. By giving this inch or even less than an inch, if you think that's what it is, they can't say anymore, and that they essentially are just saying no operation, and maybe a little more spine will be grown in some members of Congress. We've got to move on. In any case, in an age-old case of 1 step forward, 3 steps back, while gun control progress may look promising in Congress, the personnel problems in the Trump administration are at this point jaw-dropping. Here again is the Secretary of State and a reporter at yesterday's press briefing.
Can you address the main headline of this story that you called the president a moron, and if not, where do you think these reports or
I'm not going to deal with petty stuff like that. I mean, this is what I don't understand about Washington. Again, I'm not from this place, but the places I come from, we don't deal with that kind of petty nonsense.
Let me be the 400th person to say he never denied it, even though his own department later in the day said he never said such a thing. If he did say it, and if he believed it, Should we not be in deep worry in this country that the lead diplomat for the country thinks, at least in some instance, that his boss is a bleeping moron?
Yeah, I mean, it's like watching a Mel Brooks movie, except it's real life and it's serious. We should be worried about that, and we should be worried about the President of the United States undercutting his lead diplomat on things as significant as negotiations with North Korea. We need to be concerned about this whole gamut of things, and Rex Tillerson is the tip of the iceberg, but it's a major concern, and I expect we're going to see Rex Tillerson out of there in the next 6 months.
By the way, the North Korea thing, if you were asleep a couple of days ago, Trump tweets, this is after Tillerson says, as most diplomats on both sides say was sane, have at least discussions with North Korea. Here's Trump. I told Rex Tillerson, our wonderful Secretary of State, he's wasting his time trying to negotiate with Little Rocket Man. You know, Michael, to add to this moron thing, Senator Corker, who interestingly is not running for re-election, all of a sudden they can be honest, says that Tillerson and the generals are, quote, what separate our country from a chaos. You have a weird smile. Well, you actually always have a weird smile on your face.
I'm just surprised that you guys had to wait for Rex Tillerson to point out that Donald Trump is a moron.
Well, I know
This is
you're not Trump.
News. No, but even this is beyond that. This isn't the idea that people are calling Trump names and that the people behind him, that is old news. What I find interesting, though, is that on the issue of North Korea, I would argue that Trump, in the big picture, is right because 25 years of quote negotiation, we funded the nuclear program that they're building right now.
But he doesn't understand.
No, my point is.
But he doesn't understand there's 25 years of negotiation with this guy's father. He thinks it's the same guy. He doesn't even know who's freaking in charge of North Korea.
I'm not disputing you. I don't know for a fact that you're wrong.
That is the definition of moronic.
But what's moronic is saying that talking to North Koreans worked. And this is my point is this is what's so common about Trump is he'll get a good idea and then it'll just get lost in the Trump machine. And
well, let me give you a bad idea. When you have a Secretary of State who you've picked, and you upstage him with your son-in-law, you upstage him with Nikki Haley, you upstage him or at least embarrass him with North Korea. I mean this seriously. Would you not say the average American should be nervous about the state of affairs in our international diplomacy, whether you like the direction of North Korea or not, in terms of the fact that the two top guys apparently are in totally different universes?
Once again, if Trump's president, you're not nervous, you're not paying attention. Having said that, how do you guys feel about the suicide pact reports that Mnuchin and Tillerson and Mattis all said, if one goes, we all go? I don't like the phrase suicide pact and leader of the free world if I can possibly avoid it.
I will say I'm not nervous internationally only. I'm nervous internationally and domestically.
Well,
it's a complete package.
I want to add one more thing to this. Donald Trump last night was talking about the NBC report, the moron thing. Here is a little piece of what the president had to say.
It was fake news. It was a totally phony story. Thank you very much. It was made up. It was made up by NBC. They just made it up.
In the years we worked together, you would always badmouth mainstream press, and I defend the mainstream. We go back and forth. It gave me a headache. Literally lasted for years. Is this not? He is doing a pretty good selling job, in my estimation, even though the press's approval has gone up 10 points in the last couple of months. When the President of the United States says things like this, which, with all due respect, are totally preposterous, that this is all made up. Doesn't that do damage to small d democracy, that people do begin to believe they can't trust anything and anybody?
The media have done a great job of damaging themselves for 25 years. The advent of multimedia
You're making
outlets.
up stories like this?
No, not making up. My point is the credibility was already low before Donald Trump arrived. You couldn't have had Donald Trump if you had a trusted media in the United States. They couldn't fight back because they'd been so partisan for so long, trying to make Mitt Romney look like a killer and racist, that by the time you're done with that story, why should anyone trust the mainstream
media? What's your reaction to that?
I spent several years as Governor Patrick's communications director. Haven't really worked with the press on the national level other than some stories that touched Massachusetts. But listen, are there times when the media, all due respect, makes you absolutely crazy? Yeah. But was there ever a moment?
Crazy, but
yeah. Try being on our end of things.
Exactly. Thank you.
Was there ever a moment when I thought media, even folks with whom we disagreed philosophically, was making things up and that we would have issued an accusation like that?
I don't think Trump believes it either. I mean, it's
but he's issuing the accusation and he's polluting the waters and he is hurting small d democracy. I mean, I think about kids who are watching this and who are learning what civic participation and democracy means. And we talked about being terrified now. I'm terrified for the future because that's what these kids will think civic engagement and democracy means, and he has poisoned the well.
Let's give one more topic to the kids out there watching. This is the final topic. I'm going to go ahead and let NBC's Chuck Todd again introduce it as he did today on Boston Public Radio.
Equifax is a bunch of bleeping morons.
Exactly. He said it, I didn't. But in this case, it would appear Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren would agree. Here she is during the former Equifax CEO's testimony yesterday about, obviously, the massive data breach that put all of our information in jeopardy. Here's Warren.
Equifax did a terrible job of protecting our data. You've got 3 different ways that Equifax is making money, millions of dollars, off its own screw-up.
You know, I am subscribed to the Lily Tomlin thing. No matter how cynical I get, I just can't keep up. And I am. You know, forget the $90 million golden parachute this guy is going to get. The Internal Revenue Service awards a no-bid $7.5 million contract to this company that screwed half of the Americans. What do you mean, yes?
Well, of course, the government. They're suddenly going to start being not stupid? Of course. The government hands out contracts like this all the time. And there's the notion that you have to be competent to work for the government is on its face
ridiculous. Does this bother you?
Well,
of course it does.
Okay.
Because
it sounds
it's the
like
government.
what you're saying is that you would support what Elizabeth Warren is saying, that there needs to be more regulation to make sure
More
that these
government?
stupid things like this don't happen.
The same people
We're
who just
agreeing
hired
here.
them. The same people who just hired them. You want to give them more power because they're so smart.
We want to regulate them more so that as someone who's
again.
had her identity stolen on more than one occasion, stuff like this is terrible.
I'm giving this one
and whatever
to her.
we can
Thank
do
you.
to protect it, let's do
I
it.
gotta go. Is that okay?
I can live with
nice
that.
to see you, Jesse.
No one will
Pleasure.
steal my identity. It's
Michael,
tragic.
pleasure to see
I thank
you.
them. Please,
Give it away.
Goodbye.